Today, with the gold standard a distant memory, US spending predictably has spiraled wildly out of control. But who pays for this spending? The answer? You do. Because as the world has been flooded with more and more paper dollars since 1971, the dollars you earn and the dollars you've saved are worth less and less. The dollar's purchasing power has declined at a staggering rate. Gold, on the other hand, over the same period, has not only held its purchasing power has actually increased. To illustrate this point, we turn to our financial reporter, Walter Birch.
Roz, I think this will come as quite a surprise to our viewers. Now, in 1971, a new Mustang Standard coupe could be purchased for 83 ounces of gold, or the equivalent of approximately $2,900. Now today, that same 83 ounces of gold could not only purchase a standard coupe, but a fully loaded top-of-the-line Mustang, with thousands of dollars still left over, enough to buy gasoline for the car, even at today's prices, for years to come.
So, coming full circle, we can see that the President's decision in 1971 to leave the gold standard behind has contributed to a dramatic decline in the purchasing power of the dollar. A dollar no longer backed by gold, but in reality, by you and your taxes.
What he's really saying is, all the debt of the United States up until August of 1971 was backed by this pile of gold here because everyone accepts it as money and has for 5,000 years. But we don't have nearly the amount of gold compared to the amount of paper we put out in the world, and France called our bluff. So because they called our bluff, we have canceled our agreement. We have reneged on our contract. And now what we're going to do is for everybody that has a demand on the United States, we're going to put it on the burden of the taxpayer of the United States. So if you have a debt against the United States, we're going to make our workers pay for it from now on. That's what he really said. But very few people understand that. They wonder, well, what does Mr. Morgan mean here? I mean exactly what I said, that the productive capacity is the government's ability to tax you to be able to pay for money that they spent that they didn't earn. And if that doesn't wake you up right now, nothing I say in this interview will.
When the stock market topped out and turned bearish at the end of 1999, 2000, at that time I said, I don't think the Fed is going to take it. I think they'll fight the deflation tooth and nail. It's a question of inflated die. We cannot, the country can't take a deflation. And I repeated that over and over. It's a question of inflated die, and that's exactly where we are today.
An ocean of liquidity came into the monetary system, which we're now seeing in rising inflation. This has always been the cause of inflation. It always will be. So we have inflation rising, and this is going hand in hand with this inflate or die, if you will, scenario. But the end result of that is that this is an environment that's just ripe for gold, because gold is the ultimate inflation hedge, and it does very well. In fact, it tends to lead inflation. And the fact that gold's been rising for the past 4 years or more isn't a coincidence. It's been anticipating that this was coming.
People who are saving dollars, it's going to be a tragedy. Those dollars are losing purchasing power, and people who've been able to save their whole lives are going to find out that what I found out with my GI insurance policy, it's not worth anything now. The real insurance policy is gold.
When investors are looking at their portfolio, they're looking at it in terms of dollars, their stocks, their bonds, and when the dollar loses its purchasing power, that means also their bonds and their stocks are really eroding in value. So they're at risk. They're at risk of losing their wealth. What gold offers is something that typically gains value in times when the dollar's eroding.
The dollar, it seems to me, is heading on a long-term slide that's not unlike the long-term decline that we saw in the British pound, frankly, in the beginning and middle part of the last century. You know, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency in effect, even though we don't call it that. That's what it is. And that's basically the reason, in my mind, why the US has been able to maintain these enormous deficits for so long. Now, we're running deficits that are almost 6% of current account deficits that are almost 6% of GDP. That's a level that most economists would call a